before we get started, we have a few minutes. Does anybody have a pet you want to show? In my other class, somebody had a talking bird for Linguistics 390. It was very appropriate.
I have my dog.
You have your dog?
Yeah. Come here.
Bark?
Oh, he doesn't bark. No.
Perfect.
He's very quiet, yeah. Oh, hi.
It has a cat.
This is my cat. His name is Felix.
Felix.
He's very much like a baby. He lets me hold him like
Oh.
Small dog club.
Yeah.
Your dog's name? Sarah?
My dog's name is Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Mine is named Flapjack, by the way.
I love that, and I love the cartoon.
It's really hard with my mask for people to hear me say it, so I have to specify, like the pancakes. Otherwise, they're like Blackjack, and look at my tan dog.
This is Rory.
Rory. Wow. How many pets? Your dog's name, Unity.
His name is Tito.
oh.
Yeah. He might be loud though, depending. We had somebody working like on the door in the hallway, and he always thinks they're trying to get into our house, so he just barks.
My dog is still at home. He can't come to PSU.
She's not with me, but my profile picture is my dog.
I see that. Is your dog's name also Race?
No, her name is Kira.
Is she a Shiba?
Mm-hmm.
She's so cute.
Yeah.
Probably really sassy too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
All right. Thanks for showing me your pets, showing us your pets. If I'm ever teaching from home, you will definitely hear my dog.
Sorry, just for clarification, you want us to have our the questions and answers for the Chandler.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Are you seeing the PowerPoint now? Okay. Yeah, we will definitely talk about that just after these announcements. So that was one question about the Chandler questions. Well, might as well talk about it right now since it was asked. So we're going to talk, you can use those in class today because we're going to talk in small groups, and if you want to edit anything, you can go ahead and edit it and submit it after class, that's fine. So last time I was talking about whether, like, ways to increase questions and comments about the class, because it's sometimes difficult to do that during the electronic virtual meeting. And then in my other class, a student was talking about Discord and told me more about it, and somebody in the other class set that up for that class. So does anybody have experience with this? So if you have, can you just say a little bit about it? Like, if it's something that would, like you would say, you know, be useful for class discussion, like a kind of pervasive or continuing discussion about any kind of issue. I guess that's what I'm thinking about, like that questions or comments that you have about class doesn't have to be restricted to class time, especially in this virtual environment. So that's what I've learned about Discord, is that it's a just, I guess for me, I'm thinking of it as a channel of communication that's just, it's there, and I think easily accessible, maybe more easily accessible and user friendly than something like D2L.
I know there's the applied linguistics one already, and there is channels for each class.
There is.
There's not like, so there'll just be one channel, but or at least I don't think we have one, but that I'm seeing.
Oh, so I wonder, did the university send that?
And on the Discord, if Pragmatics isn't on there, I can add it.
Okay. And
it is on there. I just saw that. Never mind.
Okay.
so how, so I guess it's kind of unclear to me how to expect students might use it. So I guess it was easy enough for me to find out how to use it. So if you just, do you have to do a search for Portland State Applied Linguistics? Or, you know, will it come up because of location, or?
You have to have a custom invite link.
Ah.
Yeah, it's like a closed circuit kind of chat room forum style thing.
So Sierra, how did you find that? Did you get an invite link, or you just can see that it's there?
That was through the listserv they put out, I think, in the spring term.
Yeah, I think Allegra sent another one to the listserv recently for anyone who wasn't already on it.
I totally missed that. Well, whoever has received the invitation, can you forward that to me or forward it to the class?
Yeah, I've not seen this email either. I don't know anything about Discord.
I'll send an invite link to you, John, and then you can forward it to the class.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think maybe what it was, maybe the link was sent to people who were already using the server. Since I wasn't, I didn't see it.
It was sent to the linguistics listserv, so the linguistics email. But there have also been in a few of my classes someone who just sends the invite link to the chat. So.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for sending that, Mac, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm not going to put, I'm going to use D2L like I've used D2L. So the lecture slides and assignments and homework, everything will be submitted to D2L. So I guess I'm considering the use of Discord just to be for questions and discussion that you all want to have. I can't promise that I'm going to look at it regularly. So, you know, some of you have already sent me questions by email, and I think you'll see I will respond right away by email. So, you know, if there's something about class that you really want to get the answer to, please send it to me directly. If there's a particular discussion or questions that aren't answered and you want to alert me to it on Discord, then I will for sure go there and look at it. But I'm just not sure how much I'll be able to build that into my routine this term.
I would like to know if the same link is for every first Friday.
Ah, okay. So on the screen about this first Friday, that I do not know. I don't know why it wouldn't be if this goes away after time, but you know, you can ask. I assume Lynn Santelman will be there, and she's the one who sent around this message. So I'm sure we'll figure that out, whether it's the same link or a different link. But this is kind of, I tried this out last week. It was kind of interesting. I wish I had human subjects permission to record it, but I don't, so I can't record it. But it does seem to solve one of the problems that we had with First Friday was that it was, when it got to be a very large group, it was difficult for people to participate or talk because there were so many people. And it restricted, I mean, people just didn't go as much. I mean, I didn't attend because of that reason primarily. But that's the idea. So if you're unfamiliar with First Friday, it was an informal face-to-face gathering at Hot Lips Pizza on First Friday of every month for the Applied Linguistics Department and friends. And this is the virtual version of that Friday, 4:30 to 6:30. And if you follow that link, you just set up a user profile, put your name in, and then you have an avatar and you move it around. And when you get close to a person, then the image appears and you can talk to them. If you want to get away, you can just move away. Like I didn't know Lynn was making a screenshot, but she sent that around and she sent a screenshot that had three or four people together talking, and then she had me off on the side like I was antisocial or something. But you can do that. So for next time, there's a couple chapters from the Austin book, How to Do Things with Words, which is a classic in pragmatics on language as action or language as performative. And there's a short reading guide there. It's not too much of a reading guide. It's kind of a weird language because it was like a lecture. It's taken from lectures that he did. So it's very conversational, but you see what like kind of academic talk from 1962 is like. So if you're interested in historical linguistics, do that. So are there other questions about class? Things on D2L? All right. This is one thing that is from the syllabus, and it was not completely clear yet, but because I had to wait to see who's all going to be in class. But on D2L, as you may have noticed, on the syllabus, there are days when there's a DL listed in the in-class and homework due. So in this column, the third column, and simply means there will be a discussion of the reading that day, a small group discussion, and there will be a discussion leader assigned. And on the slide here, these are the discussion leaders assigned. So we'll have two groups, G1 and G2, and the person named John is me. So we have an even number of people. So I'll be a discussion leader with group 2. So on the syllabus, kind of embedded deeply in there, it says that undergraduates, you're not discussion leaders, but you're expected to have done the reading and be prepared to talk about the reading and ask questions about the reading that you have. And in preparation for that, I want you to write out the questions or comments and put those into D2L. So there's a place in the assignments area in D2L for each of these readings where you're expected to put questions and comments that you have. And that's part of what you'll use to help you with the discussion of the readings. The discussion leaders, I would like to have you have a kind of a sketch of a plan. It doesn't have to be a fully fleshed out lesson plan like you learned about in teaching methods, but some kind of plan for what you're going to do in the discussion leading to facilitate a discussion. And there's a place for you to put that also in D2L. So what questions have you got about all of that procedure?
On the days that we have discussions, how much of class will that be?
20, 25 minutes probably.
Okay.
I guess for me, my question would be, so is the expectation like every time we go through a reading that we post like our answers to the questions that you give us that we're supposed to answer for each text like within the discussions, or is this just purely for in-class discussions that we have in class, like we post our like what we talked about individually on D12?
Well, what I'm with this specifically, these would be questions that you bring to your small group discussion, questions or comments that you have about the small group discussion.
Okay.
And that's what the purpose would be. So they could be questions that you want to ask other people that you know the answer to, but I'm thinking primarily there'd be questions like, I don't understand what this means. You know, I don't know what they mean by this. I think it means this, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
And then you'll see there's some choices here. Turns out that all the choices turned out for group 1. So in week 3, the first one of these small group reading discussions we'll have will be either on Robinson or Dujarnet et al. So how I'm going to do this is if you have a preference, that is anybody, discussion leaders or not discussion leaders, to look at the readings, and if you say, I really have a strong preference for this one, send me an email and let me know, and I'll just keep a tally. And if there's a clear consensus, like it looks like people really want to read this one, let's focus on this. And if not, then I'll pick one if nobody sends me anything. So again, where there are choices like week 3, week 5, and week 9, take a look at those 2, and you may have a strong preference because of the particular language that's addressed or the particular topic. And then send me an email, and then I'll keep track of that. And then let you all know what we're going to do, if we're going to divide the class or if we're all going to focus on one reading or what we do. Okay, now on to today.
I have a question about that. We are going to be posting this during class time, correct?
The questions and comments that you have, ideally you would do that before class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want you to have done the reading and then think about questions or comments that you have that you would bring to the class.
Okay, thank you.
More questions and comments will come up during the discussion, but I want you to have that prepared before. Okay. So just to recap, we kind of ended here. I was just introducing the linguistic sign and the 2 conceptions of the linguistic sign, and these diagrams come from the Chandler reading. And for me, the most important thing about this difference is that Saussure's approach was to think about a system of contrasts so that linguistic signs, although there is some physical reality to that, they're not iconic. They don't resemble the thing that they're referring to, but they should be thought of as in terms of how they contrast with other signs in the system. Very similar to like the difference between phonetics and phonology. You have a system, and a particular sound in a particular system makes sense because of how it contrasts with other sounds in that system. And that's how we make, in the Saussurian model, that's how we make sense of these particular signs. If we think of a sign like the word tree, we make sense of that because that string of sounds or string of letters, although Saussure thought about it more as sounds, that contrasts uniquely with other strings of sounds or letters in the language. And because of that contrast, we kind of limit it and we know what it means. And then, so the difference with Peirce and why Peirce is particularly important for the study of pragmatics is because there's this third part added this interpretant or the sense that wasn't really discussed much in Saussure's model. So with Peirce's sign, there's an interest in sense making, or that there's an implied interpreter, a person who is making sense, or a person who is doing the interpretant work. And that, when we're done talking about the linguistic sign, that is what we will be dealing with in this class, that interpretive process. So the process of meaning making through language use, and then ultimately the sequential structure of language use. That's why I wanted to introduce this first, to get us to think about a very foundational aspect of how language works. And there, as the reading brought up too, there are problems with this conception of the sign too. There are by making a theory like this, it suggests that all forms of language always work in this particular way, and they fit the model perfectly, but they don't always fit the model perfectly. It is just a model. It's a theoretical framework or model. Then the other part that Peirce is known for is to think of these sign types, and this is also very important for pragmatics. The symbolic aspect, you can think of almost all abstract language, written forms, spoken forms, are symbolic. So these are abstract cultural conventions, like the word tree, for example. There is nothing iconic about tree. Tree is not a word that was made because the shape of the letters or the sound shape resembles what a tree looks like. It's symbolic, and that's how human language works. That's really the most complex, mysterious thing about the language process, that we have these symbolic systems. However, there are iconic and indexical aspects of language too, and the obvious ones in language for the iconic aspects are this onomatopoetic words like buzz or hiss, things like that, where the word itself actually sounds like the thing that it's trying to describe. That's the iconic aspect of language. These, a painting or a photograph or a model, that's what these images represent. These are also examples of iconicity. It's just not iconicity in language. Iconicity in language is seen in these words that sound like the thing that they are referring to. And then the indexical aspect of language. Some people who talk about pragmatics or define pragmatics to just talk about it as it's the study of indexical expressions. But when you use a word like that or her, you have to have context to be able to interpret those words. And you have to see how they're being used in order to understand what the reference is. And that's what we do primarily in pragmatics, or studying language use. These photographs are also indexical, so that a footprint points to or has a connection with a person. It doesn't resemble a person. There is a kind of iconic aspect to it as a foot, but what the footprints point to is that a person was walking there. Similarly, smoke points to a fire. That's the indexical aspect of those things. And when I use a word like that, I'm pointing to something or referring to something, but you don't necessarily know what it is unless you have the context. That's the indexical aspect of the sign types. Are there questions about that? Because then I'm going to put you into small groups to talk about the reading and to work on the questions.
For symbolic, so I remember during the reading it used signified and signifier to explain what like the relationship between them is. Is that wrong since it's part of Pierce's, and so we should use the representum and interpretant and object?
No, that's a great question. No, it's not wrong because the symbolic aspect is how a linguistic sign works. So even the Saussurean sign, he's talking about the process behind this symbol. So we have the word tree, either the spelling TREE or me saying the sound of it, tree, is a symbol, and it's a linguistic sign. What Peirce is talking about is, yeah, sure, linguistic signs are symbolic, but they are also iconic and indexical. And Saussure didn't talk about those other two aspects of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me. Okay, so let's put you into group. So I'll give you about 10 minutes and use your questions. Let's see how many people are here. 26. Automatically. Yeah, and I'll call you back in 10 minutes. And then if there are things that you couldn't resolve or that you want to talk about more, we'll do that after when you come back. So either questions that you couldn't resolve or things that were particularly interesting, I'll ask about that. If you feel like you've really resolved everything and we don't have anything to talk about, then we'll move on, but we'll see. Okay? Oh. I tried to join a breakout group and my computer shut down. I just got it restarted. So I wonder what that's all about. I dare do that again. So, are there things we should talk about? Besides my computer crashing?
Can we talk about the second part of question 6? That's kind of a chart that has Saussure and Pierce and then sign, vehicle, sense, and referent.
Yeah. So, what should we talk about? How straightforward that is and easy to do. And
our group actually had some varying answers for Saussure's part because we weren't sure if sign, vehicle, we weren't sure if two of them fell under the same or whether we should write, oh, this doesn't apply in Saussure's world.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we've got 3 places for the Persian sign and only 2 places for the Saussurean sign. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
Yeah. I really looked at it as like, especially like referring to the first question, because that kind of signified like the structural was the sign vehicle and the relational was the sense. And so it was missing the referential, which is the referent. So for Pierce's, the sign vehicle would be the representment, the sense would be the interpretant, and the referent would be the object, which is very clear. But when it comes to Saussure's, he only had the structural and the relational. So that would be, he only had the sign vehicle and the sense, and the referent was what was missing.
That's good. That's what I got. I'm glad. Okay. So did you just put not applicable for the referent?
Yeah, I just kind of put like an X where referent was.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did anybody, I like that interpretation. Did anybody have another way to interpret that or try to complete that part of the question?
Yeah, for me, I just saw 2 blanks like for each like for 3 parts for like sign, vehicle, sense, and referent. And so I thought we were just supposed to fill in Pierce's 3, like the 3 points of the triangle, like what I just said, sign, vehicle, sense, and referent. So I didn't realize it was supposed to be like a comparison chart of like how does Saussure's relate in comparison to Pierce's. So like, oh.
That is what I was intending, that it would be a comparison between the 2, but I could see how that might not be clear, especially when you see that Saussure, there's only 2 parts there.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions or comments about these questions or the reading generally?
I do. For number 2, could you explain maybe a little bit of what the negative and the positive references might be? Because it definitely got me a little confused in languages.
That's not the, I guess that's not the greatest question, actually. Now that I read it again, it's probably not the best wording for it. Did anybody else make any sense of that question?
I connected it to the part where they were talking about if you want to show someone what red is, you'd have to show them what red isn't. Like you'd have to show them a bunch of other colors and say, okay, this is red and these aren't. So by showing what something isn't, that's how we connect it to its meaning.
Yeah, that's what I was intending. It's about contrast rather than thinking, you know, maybe the question should be about contrast really than about negative versus positive. I think negative and positive maybe tries to get you thinking in a different way. To reword that one.
I think it's like the most important part when you're defining things is to see how they're distinct instead of how they are similar, especially with language, because if your signs or your words aren't making distinctions, then it's not like a super helpful system.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And for Saussure, that is how the system works. That system of contrasts. Great. More question, comment?
I had a question about question number 7. So we were talking about in my group about how they use like the photograph example as like kind of their answer for that, like how photograph represents things, but it also points out like their place or how they work. And I had a little bit of a different answer. I kind of took it as like a sign can be indexable and iconic because the interpreter kind of decides on what it is. So I was wondering, like, was that what you intended for? Is that like the photograph example? But is my answer also acceptable?
I was intending the photograph example, or there's another example in the text too that kind of fleshes that out, or can illustrate 3 aspects. But I think the way you explained it makes sense to me. Can you say that again? So there's it's up to the person to decide how they're using the sign, because they could be using it in an indexical way or in an iconic way or in a symbolic way.
Yeah, because we were talking about a little bit in class yesterday about how in Pierce's example, he really brought up that there is, or kind of like mentioned that there is someone that is doing the interpretation. So I kind of took that as like he has these 3 modes of signs, and even if they're like a sign looks one way to another person, it can look a different way or mean something else to another. That's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, what if I do this? Ding dong.
Probably a door.
So to an American, that would be the doorbell.
Yeah.
But is it indexical, iconic, symbolic?
I think in English it would be iconic, but I think it could also be indexical.
It's all 3.
Yeah, and how could it be indexical?
Because it's a signal to go that someone's arrived, that you need to go to the door.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's conceivable that I could go ding dong, and to signal to you, I have to go answer the door, or something like I'm pointing to the doorbell out there. And that actually did happen this morning. I'm at the office, and there's a doorbell, and somebody rang the doorbell. Yeah, so I agree with that interpretation, Brianna. The other one that was in the, am I sharing the screen now? You see the power? Okay. The other one that was in, you know, this symbol also has iconic and indexical properties, and is intended that way, to have all 3 of those things, and that's how it works. That's another example.
John, I have a question about your ding dong example.
Uh-huh.
I thought the indexical relationships had to be natural and couldn't be faked. I thought that there was there had to be some kind of physical connection. So for me, I would have said that ding dong was actually symbolic, whether it's an actual doorbell or a person saying ding dong.
I agree that it's symbolic. And I would say it's definitely iconic, especially the way I said it. The indexical aspect is like how I'm using it. So it's hard with a made up example because you're not in the room, and you have to do a lot of inferential work to understand the indexical aspect of it. You're right that usually indexes have a more natural connection, but we can use language in indexical ways that, aren't typical, I guess. That's how I think of that.
Okay, thanks.
I could see it as both an icon and indexical in that, like, so it's an icon because that sound represents, I mean, if sounds can even be icons, I wasn't sure about that, but the sound just represents the doorbell itself, like that apparatus. You get that. That's like the first thing. You're like aware of what it is. And so that's iconic. That's enough for me to think it's iconic. And then indexical, like, I think also in the article it said like a watch or a sundial are indexical signs because they're like in ways parts of the thing that they're representing, the watch being a part of time, and then the sundial being a part of, I guess that's time also, but the sun. And I don't know, the doorbell is also like the event of like the guest or like the person at the door.
Yeah. So the iconic part, yeah, is the sound, and for the iconic aspects of language, I can't think of better examples than the sounding like the thing it represents, because you can do iconic work, I guess, with the way that you write out something, but it's not it, and written symbols, like the article said too, there is, in the history of writing systems, it moves from iconic to more abstract. But nowadays, with a fully, abstract writing system, it's hard to think about iconic aspects of writing. Sound, it is easier to think about iconic aspects.
I had a quick question. I already submitted the questions, so if I were to submit them again, do you want me to just write like final or redone or something so you know which one? Okay.
Yeah, or if you can delete the first one. I don't know.
I don't think it allows you to, but I'll look.
And then just put V2 or something, version 2 or something.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great questions. I want to try a different exercise before we finish today. I'm going to send you something. Chat. Has anybody studied Russian? Can you read Cyrillic?
I just started studying a week ago, so kind of.
Do you know all the sounds?
No, I just know 3/4 of them.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm looking for a volunteer to read this out loud. I haven't looked at all your language profiles, so I can't pick on somebody. So you're safe. I can do it, but I'd rather have somebody else do it. Because whenever I do it, people make fun of my Russian. You know, then the real Russian users come out and they say, "Oh, come on, that's not how you say that." All right, I'll
promise
do
not
it.
to make fun of you.
What? Say that again.
I said we promise not to make fun of you.
Oh, thank you. I'm very sensitive. Okay. Now, also, I need to know who knows German. Okay. Then listen very carefully. Don't pay attention to the writing. Just listen to it. Lies mir diese Karte vor. Und ich sage dir, woher du kommst.
Is it read me this card and I'll say where you're from?
Exactly. So that's what the handout is all about. It kind of gives the transcription and the meaning. So what's going on here and how is this related to linguistic signs?
Did you speak in German? Because it sounded like German.
Great question. Did I speak in German?
Yeah, he did.
I did.
Yeah, I was confused too about that.
I was like reading a card that's written in the Cyrillic alphabet.
Is it because the sounds don't exactly have to match the words? It happens in English all the time. I mean, there is letters that we don't have to pronounce and they're in the word.
Yes, exactly. It is very much related to that. I wouldn't put it exactly that way, but that's the same principle. So, well, what was the process? What just happened? I just read some Cyrillic letters. Or were they words?
So you were reading German, but written in Cyrillic letters?
That's true. I probably was doing that because I do know German. If I didn't know German, it would have been easier.
Is it similar to how in because Korean, Japanese, and Mandarin all use the same, like if you use, or at least Mandarin and Japanese, they use kanji, but different kanji have different meanings in both languages.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're trying to point to?
Do they have the same sound?
Yes, sometimes.
That's different actually. That's more an issue of, well, it is similar. I mean, this is
sometimes they have like sometimes they have different sounds. So like one could be one sound and the other could be the other sound, but the symbol is the same.
Yeah. So there's a historical relationship there. In this example, this is a completely made up, it has no, there's nothing about Russian or German that this has to do with. There's no relationship between Russian and German, except for borrowed words.
Oh, okay.
In language family. But German doesn't use this writing system. Russian uses this writing system.
So John, I've had Arab friends do this with me, and they write in English, but they write in Arabic, but they're writing an English word.
Okay, so using a different writing system to sound a certain way that makes sense in the language that the audible language.
Yes.
That is the same thing that I was doing. Yeah, Diego?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. I was just gonna say, so you're saying more that it's like almost as if like the words I'm speaking may not be any meaning, but you are interpreting it to make your own meaning, despite that I'm just maybe speaking gibberish and it makes sense to you. Is that the idea that you're pushing?
Not exactly. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is there are these written symbols, and they're done in the Cyrillic alphabet, and they're divided up in a certain way. And because of how they're divided up, these abstract symbols the written aspect of it looks like certain symbols, but they don't. The written aspect doesn't make up a linguistic sign in this case.
So if a Russian were to be reading that would make no sense at all to them.
Unless they knew German.
Unless they knew German,
Yeah.
exactly.
So a monolingual Russian, would look at this and try to make sense of it, but wouldn't be making any sense of it.
And I speak German, so I knew what you were saying, but I have no idea what that card says.
Yeah.
So both ways.
So the sound-wise, it constituted linguistic signs, the sound of it.
So then are you saying that like a sign can have, I'm still confused.
It is confusing. Somebody was able to make sense of this because they understood German. And that's what it means. It means read to me this card. Read out loud this card to me, and I will tell you where you come from. That's the translation into English. And it's on the handout, the exact word by word Russian to German, or sorry, German to English, because
sorry, go ahead.
These are not Russian words. These are Cyrillic alphabetic symbols put into a way that when read out loud, they make linguistic signs in German.
So it's a joke in East Germany because they understood Russian and East German, but in Russia, people who could understand Russian might not understand what this says.
Yeah. That's right. So that was the idea, and I don't remember, maybe I didn't put that on the handout, but that's the idea. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the handout.
Oh, it is on the handout. Okay, yeah. So I got
yeah, I'm not able to download it from the chat.
Okay, I'll put it on D2L. So, yeah, that's the idea, is that I purchased the card in East Germany, and in East Germany, it's a unified country now, but it's the eastern part of Germany. People who grew up there were required to study Russian, so they knew how to read the Cyrillic alphabet and knew Russian, at least some Russian, so they could read it. And it says, if you read this card out loud, and if you can read it out loud, then I know where you came from. You came from East Germany.
So then is the point of the exercise to show that you need to know both the meaning and the visual concept of a sign in order to understand it, and if you don't understand or can't grasp this one part of the sign, you can't understand it?
Well, first of all, I just think I think it's really funny. And I have this on my office door. So I could also write, like, if you have seen this card before, then you must have been to my office. But since nobody can come to my office, now it's there. Anyway, but I think for me, the point is like this, and it came out in the reading too, like what is the linguistic sign a sound, or is it writing, or is it both? And then when you get to the postmodern aspect that they started to touch on, like the fact that that postmodernists start to take the written form as being primary and having a force in and of itself that Saussure never thought about or wasn't interested in. Saussure said that the linguistic sign was the sound that somebody produces. But now, being in a very highly literate, at least us being in a very highly literate society, the written word in the written form does take on a new kind of power. So, yeah. Maybe it's a long
I think the interpretation piece is really interesting too, because when I have had, the few times I've had Arabic speaking friends do that to me, and they send me the word written in Arabic, but as an English word, my initial struggle is because they sent it in Arabic, I'm trying to interpret it in Arabic and find the word in Arabic, and the word doesn't exist in Arabic.
Yeah.
It doesn't transfer into my head as English.
And for me, it's worked just the opposite, because I haven't studied or used Russian in so long, but I have used German. So when I read it, I almost read it with a German pronunciation. It's hard for me not to read it with a German pronunciation. So it's time to go. So I'll see you on Friday. If you want to stick around and talk about anything else, I'll just be here for a little longer. Otherwise, I will see you on Friday, and I will put this handout on D2L.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one last question.
Sure.
Where will you not put but categorize like the evolution of language? Because like you said, the alphabet that you used, for example, not the Russian alphabet, but you know, like your normal alphabet, I guess. I've seen it. People use it to write down Quechua, which is like a really old language.
Yeah.
Will like you consider that as like iconic?
No.
No.
Okay. The icon. So iconic, I would think of it as indexical, like, because it points to something. It doesn't look like something. I mean, it looks like, you know, it's like if you write out a word, let's just say the word tree again. You write out the word tree, T-R-E-E. It doesn't look like a tree. You know, tree looks this. The word tree, you know, goes like this, and it has these little things in it. That's why written language it's really hard to find examples of written language that are iconic. Spoken language, it's easier, like the whole ding dong, you know, or the example used in the book, cuckoo, cuckoo. That sounds like a bird. That's what the sound that the bird makes, and that's why it's called a cuckoo bird.
I won't. Okay. I see. It's just interesting because I don't think that there was really alphabet, but when I read it, it makes no sense. I don't know where I'm reading.
Wait, so which one? What are you talking about now? When you're reading?
When I'm reading like Quechua, for example, because I got a book and I'm just trying to teach myself that, and it's just a lot of. They don't use C's, they use K's in there.
So do you understand when people are speaking Quechua?
A little bit, not a lot. Like, I can have a basic conversation, that's about it. but no, not really. So that's what I was like interested, because there's some letters that they use. They put H sometimes between like a K and a vowel.
Uh-huh.
If you're not pronouncing the H, why is it even there?
Well,
So it's just kind of like those things.
Yeah. That's, well, like, didn't you say the thing about English? Didn't you make the comment about English, or was that somebody else?
Oh yeah, that was me.
Yeah, so that is similar. There are, I mean, there's historical reasons why there are certain spellings, and then the sound changed. So in English, like the word make, M-A-K-E, used to be pronounced make. But then sounds changed, and because it's written down, the spelling convention didn't change. You know, so it still looks like make. The sound changed, so we pronounce it make.
Oh, okay. I
So
hope
that
we
might be
study
the same.
then.
That might be the same thing in Quechua. So there are letters that are not pronounced, but historically they were pronounced.
That is true. Okay, well, thank you. That was a lot of help.
You're welcome.
All right. I'll see you on Friday.
See you
Bye.
Friday.
Thanks.